sisters, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Born as Michael King Jr., Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. Earning a degree in sociology, he was valedictorian of his class in 1951 and even elected student body president. By 1955, he completed his PhD and was married to Coretta Scott. On December 1st of that same year, 42-year-old Rosa Parks boarded the Cleveland Avenue bus to go home from an exhausting day at work. When asked to move to the back of the bus, as it was expected of blacks in a racist America at the time, Parks refused. Upon her arrest, Martin Luther King declared that there was no alternative but to protest and boycott buses. Martin Luther King's fresh and skillful rhetoric put a new energy into the civil rights struggle. The 382 days of walking to work, harassment, and violence had ignited a fight nationwide for civil rights. By 1960, King was gaining national notoriety. He returned to Atlanta to become co-pastor with his father at Ebenezer Baptist Church, but also continued his civil rights efforts. On October 19, 1960, King and 75 students entered a local department store and requested lunch counter service, but were denied. When they refused to leave the area, King and 36 others were arrested. The news of his imprisonment entered the 1960 presidential campaign, when candidate John F. Kennedy made a phone call to Coretta Scott expressing his concern. Political pressure was quickly set in motion, and King was released. On August 28, 1963, 250,000 Americans, black and white, young and old, descended on the nation's capital in hopes of peace. It was called the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, but it went down in history as a turning point of the civil rights movement.
One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today.
The rising tide of civil rights agitation produced a strong effect on public opinion. Many people in cities not experiencing racial tensions began to question the nation's Jim Crow laws and the near-century second-class treatment of African American citizens. This resulted in the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Martin Luther King also won the Nobel Prize that year for his peaceful efforts of a unified America. By 1968, the years of demonstration and confrontations were beginning to wear on Martin Luther King Jr. He had grown tired of marches, going to jail, and death threats. Unfortunately, those death threats became a reality for Martin Luther King. He was assassinated on April 4, 1968, by James Earl Ray. The killing sparked riots and demonstrations in more than 100 cities across the country. Martin Luther King was the most important voice of the American civil rights movement. He was a peaceful man, and his legacy lives on today. Who's to say what history would be like without this peaceful man? Thanks to him, we live in a country where people are free with equal rights. Thanks a lot, Martin Luther King.